That's it. So, Assalamu alaikum, Conor.
Welcome to Living the Life.
Welcome to Living the Life. Now, that's an extraordinary trailer. It looks like an incredible film. Now, Islamophobia is something that gets talked about a lot, but I personally feel it gets simplified a lot in the media as well. But it is a very complicated issue, and you're obviously exploring it from so many different dynamics. Why was it important to you, Conor, to explore this issue?
Well, two reasons, really. I mean, I'm a Muslim by my faith, and it saddens me and it angers me when we hear stories in the press that constantly go out of their way, I think, in some ways, to perpetuate us as terrorists and groomers and this, that and the other. And of course, by and large, like any culture, community in the world, the majority are good people. So that saddens me in that respect. But also from an artistic point of view, there's so little, if anything, done, especially in this country, that looks at Islamophobia in a kind of fictional narrative sense. You know, usually it's talked about, and rightly so. In settings such as, you know, workshops like the likes of Tell Mama or Mend, you go out there and you discuss it in the political circles.
Sure.
But of course, it's yet to be broached in a kind of artistic sense, I suppose. And it's just, it's looking at an area of injustice which irks me no end, no matter what injustice that may be, Muslim or otherwise.
Definitely irksome.
I mean, Bradford, of course, which I understand is a setting primarily for this film, is known for many things. It's known for, as you say, peace-loving people, very passionate people in terms of the Muslim community, whether that be on issues of kind of Palestine, previous wars. We see a lot of passion on, say, negative issues, but we don't often see, do we, a lot of positivity thrown back on the people of Bradford, do we, in terms of the setting, especially for films. I know you have the National Media Museum, which is of course, nationally renowned, but I don't think we see as much attention and investment going back to Bradford when it comes to the film industry there. Remarkable you chose that as your venue.
Well, I mean, I'm Bradford, yeah. Well, I'm Bradford born and bred. And for me, I mean, I spent a long time trying to get away from Bradford because, you know, as you mentioned before, I've been an actor. I wanted to come to London and make my name and go further afield. But, you know, God knows best, and it wasn't meant for me. And you know what? I'm glad in some ways that never happened. But I did full circle and went back to Bradford after moving away for a few years. And I love my hometown, my city, and I want to see it do well. And there are so many positives out there, and usually it's always the outside media that try to come in there. You know, they pick the little subjects that they want and do their bit and they leave. So it's, you know, it's about time we started singing our own praises, and rightly so.
Absolutely, and I mean, you're doing that in such a, you know, a passionate way with this project. Now, looking at that trailer, I'm just fixated with it because it was so, you know, it was so powerful and dynamic. But I noticed there's some Urdu voices in there as well, some very kind of old school views. What kind of research did you have to do? How many people did you talk to really get a well-rounded view of how people respond to Islam, both inside and outside the Islamic community?
Sure. I mean, to be honest, research is all. I think the whole, you know, life in general is a big canvas to be researched. So I'm always taking, you know, points of view in and research, etc. So, but I suppose specifically for this project, I have good friends who are from a Muslim and non-Muslim background. You have elders in the family who you gauge opinion from.
Of course.
So it wasn't a kind of straight-on conversation about, I'm going to do this film, what do you think? It was more about gauging a sense of what's already out there. Because sometimes people are more freer to talk about those things when there's not a spotlight on them. And obviously things in the press.
So how did you approach? So tell me, like, you went up to, I don't know, X-person in the community.
It wasn't so much a straight-on conversation like I'm going to do this film per se, you know. It's more about just sounding people out through a general conversation. And obviously the press are, you know, one area where you can gauge a lot of opinion, you know, things like the EDL and BNP and the far-right groups, and what feeds that anger. You know, it's okay to kind of close yourself down and think, well, okay, you're going to hate me, I'm going to hate you, and end it there. But I wanted to go a bit further and understand. And you hear views, so it wasn't a straight-on conversation and interview per se. It was just about kind of getting in and amongst normal conversations and drawing out those grievances and opinions. And you mentioned Urdu, yes. If I'm going to do a social realism drama, by and large, they talk Urdu or Punjabi in masjids. And there's an Iraqi family in there as well.
Certainly in Bradford, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to keep it real in that respect.
Well, talking of real, the trailer's very real. It's very hard-hitting in a positive way. I mean, you know, I'm not just saying this for the camera. I genuinely do want to go and watch the film after seeing that trailer. It's remarkable. I mean, in terms of picking your cast, obviously there's some big headliners in there. I'm sure we'll come back to that later in the show. But were there ordinary, you know, aspiring actors, actresses in Bradford that you went back to your roots to select, or what are we going to see?
I mean, since Arakan's formation in late 2009, I've had the privilege of working with many, many good people, actors and crew. And so when it came to producing this project, I had some people in mind that I'd worked with previously. And I'm always, no disrespect to the South, I'm always about keeping talent as local as possible because we don't get enough of it in the North.
Sure.
You know. So
It's a battle in the south as well, I can tell you though, mate, just so you know.
Really? I thought it
Yes,
was
it's
easy.
hard.
I thought it was easy down here.
Artif, Wrestling Week was last week, please. But it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
a divide in terms of economic, speaking, in terms of opportunity. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, well, and I myself almost fell into that kind of narrative of wanting to come down to London and make my name, etc. But actually, you can be a brain drain as well, and you can kind of lose the skills of where
Sure.
you're from. So I'd worked with some of the previous cast members, and by and large, they were unknowns to me. I don't cast through anything other than merit alone. And for me, any person who is good enough for the job gets the job. I don't care what background you are, how tall you are, how slim you are, colour you are. If you're good for the job, and if you have a good heart, I have to work with good people. Prima donnas, bye.
Love
I
it.
just can't stand them. They can go and work on somebody else's
Yeah.
project. So we picked the best people, and it was a little bit of a struggle to find everybody in the north. So we did find some London actors as well. I'll name them while I'm here. Afsana, Muna, Tony, various people were from down here. But we were fortunate, and we will see him shortly, Aqib Khan,
course.
who was actually Bradford-based. And I played his dad in a short film previous year. So that's how I met him.
We'll have to ask you both. Very brave and bold people from Bradford.
Yeah.
I do admire them.
Yeah,
We'll be hearing
absolutely.
more
We're gonna hear
very,
more
very
about
soon,
this. It's
definitely. Aqib Khan is a Bradfordian, born and bred, living in what is the UK's largest city in terms of the proportion of Muslim population within square miles. Age 20, he's already featured in 2 award-winning international films.
Indeed. If you're a fan, you'll have recognised him in the trailer just before the break. Here to tell us all about his latest projects and his involvement in Freesia is Aqib Khan. I beg your pardon. Assalamu alaikum, Aqib.
Walaikum assalam.
Welcome to the show. Listen, it's a pleasure to have a movie star, bona fide movie star, in the studio.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, Aqib, we'll talk about everything else, but we're talking about Freesia just before the break. Tell us what it was that attracted you to the project Freesia.
Well, I met Conor, of course, on this short film where he played my father. Well, my accused father, but I won't go into that. That'll be a completely other conversation. But I met Conor. We talked, and we figured out we're on the same wavelength. Then he talked about his company. I got into that, and I think it was was it 6 months or a year later you hit me up?
Approximately, I kept you updated as
Yeah.
things were progressing.
Was it
You
BB
kept
or
him-
WhatsApp?
You kept him hanging for a year?
I had to write the thing.
Oh,
first,
yes, of
before I-
course, yeah.
I had no idea what was going
Yeah.
on. He didn't tell me anything.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would
So
have
you're
been
just
excited
thinking,
on his
this
case.
guy's just blown me off, basically.
Well, I thought, right, this guy might or might not get in contact. I mean,
Okay.
that happens in my industry where, things are touted, things are written, and sometimes things don't happen. But when it came about, I knew from day one this is going to be special. When I read the script, I thought, wow, this is something that actually means something to me. This is something that's actually important. I mean, all the projects I've done, I'm very proud of, and I love them all to bits. But this is one that really stays with me because it is something that we've all been through in a sense, and we've all felt.
It's a big issue, mashallah.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely desperate to take this interview into the depths of the film. Of course we can't, because I appreciate, we've got to let the viewers have their chance to see it, and perhaps we'll have to have you back on the sofa when, no
Inshallah.
doubt, inshallah, you'll have some fantastic reviews to it. Although I better watch it myself first. I wish you the best, though, genuinely. It must be quite a thing being able to work from home to a degree in terms of in your home city. You must be very proud of that.
That was excellent. I mean, it was local. It was fun. There wasn't too much travelling involved, and we knew all the places. So it was lovely working from home.
For those that are familiar with Bradford, could you tell us an insight into some of the more popular ones, or people who may know bits of Bradford? Which kind of areas were you filming in?
Bradford, okay, we filmed in the town centre itself, next to the town hall. We filmed on some of the side streets. Off the top of my head, I can't recall all the names. We did some filming in Leeds at the Makkah Masjid. In Bradford, back again, we filmed at Doha Masjid as well. We did a little bit of filming in Keighley. So those are the 3 main areas. So for those people who are familiar to those areas, they'll recognise them pretty much straight away, I would expect.
That's brilliant. And while we're talking to you, Conor, I wanted to ask you, I wanted to ask this before actually, who did you make the film for? So is it for the Muslim community to understand the issue? Is it for people who have some kind of issue with the Muslim community?
It's aimed at those who've got a problem with Muslims and the faith,
Sure.
really. And that's going to fall by and large to people who are not Muslims naturally, and who have got racist or prejudiced views toward us. So that's my primary audience.
Gotcha.
But I'm very conscious that, and an example is a few years ago when I did a play about Islamophobia as well, previous to the film. Someone was giving out flyers, and they said, "I'm not going to come and watch this so and so. Why should I?" So they're going to close off straight away. So I'm very, very conscious that the ideal audience is not going to be within reach very, very easy, or perhaps very soon. So my aim then is to focus on the Muslim audience because it's equally important, because hopefully it's something they can connect to. So inshallah, the aim is to build a Muslim following first, and hopefully from there it will spread, and they can pass the word on to their friends.